Do you have any advice for overcoming a gambling addiction? I have some big wins and keep thinking I can have that again, but usually end up losing money, then feeling bad about myself. Why is addiction really hard to give up? What's the hardest thing about addiction? It's not quitting that very, very habit. The hardest thing about an addiction is having to wave goodbye to who you've been. Repetition of a behavior creates what in the psychology? An identity. An identity. So the more you have repeated a behavior, the more you begin to identify with that very behavior. Whereby, for example, a cigarette person who consumes cigarette every day, all of a sudden begins to see themselves as a smoker. And what does a smoker do? They smoke every day. Think about a gambling addict. They gamble every day. Eventually, they see themselves as a gambler. Yes, an addict. And what will gamblers do? Continue to gamble. Why, therefore, it's so hard to quit an addiction is because you're identifying with that very behavior you're trying to let go of. And what does the psychology begin to do when you identify with anything? It protects you and prevents you from letting go. Yes? And we get to a point where we become skeptical of change itself. Because think about this, change means the death of yourself, the old way of being. So we become skeptical of anything that can change us. And we tell ourselves a story, nothing works for me. I've tried everything. I can't be healed. How many of you are awake right now? So that keeps you in the status quo. That continues to ensure that you keep on feeding to your mind what your ego, aka identity is. And before long, none of your behaviors change. You'll be secretly hoping it changes, but it never does. Because you cannot really let go of what you identify with. What you identify with controls you emotionally, physically. For example, some people identify by the country that they're born. If, for example, how many of you agree? For example, those of you in America, if somebody who truly identifies with being an American was to see an American flag burning in front of them right now, when you agree, they might get physically angry. They might even get physical. True. Why? Because they're identifying with that flag. They believe a part of themselves is burning away in front of them. But if somebody's not born in America, they wouldn't have that same reaction because they don't identify with that country. Making sense? Whatever you identify by controls you, manipulates you. Why do most people struggle with letting go of a toxic partner? Because they're identifying with that partner. Think about this. When somebody says, I've just broken up with my partner, what's the linguistics in which they're using to describe that situation? I've just broken up with my other half. How many have ever heard that from somebody before? I've just lost my other half, or I've broken up with my other half. Knowing that your subconscious mind doesn't speak using words is imagery. What image are you painting to yourself if you're saying, I've just broken up with my other half? That's craziness. Therefore, your mind is not going to want to break up with your other half, right? So think about this. We end up holding on, not because we want to celebrate being in love, but because deep down, we're identifying with this partner, right? We can't imagine our life without this person. What you got to ask yourself right now, though, is who do you currently see yourself to be, right? Now, it's not about you writing that question down and writing some pretty answers. I see myself as an abundant person. I am this. No. If you want to know who you currently see yourself to be, analyze your behavior, the things you do every day, and then you infer the identity associated with that behavior. Making sense? That shows you how you currently see yourself. So what is it that you're doing and not doing, and infer the meaning behind that? Who do you currently see yourself as? Anytime I'm struggling with taking risks, I infer the meaning. I see myself as a non-risk taker right now. Are you getting it? Is this useful, by the way? Infer that meaning. From that awareness, that'll come to a revelation where you can begin to infer and adopt new behaviors associated with a new identity.